Welcome to Nest Summit, part of Climate Week 2020. Today we have Tony Saxton, who is the founder and CEO of Terra Group Holdings, and we have Paul Savoldelli, the CEO of America's Management Group and the co-managing partner of Terra Impact Fund. Hey Tony, hey Paul, thank you so much for taking time out today. How are you guys doing?
It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tony, I've heard so much about Terra Group, and especially it's a global multi-sector impact group. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Of course. So we've been around for some time. We have developed organically over the years. I moved from the hedge fund space into venture, and ultimately what we have now, again, a holding company that's focused on investing in game-changing businesses that help the world in some form or fashion. Within the group, we've got an organization called Terra Sustainable Technologies. Initially, it had its roots in flexible solar, but it's now a niche sustainable design engineering systems integration firm. We have interesting solutions that we deploy to end customers, businesses, nonprofits, and government entities that range from obviously power, water, light, agriculture. We've got modular farms, for instance, that are powered by alternative energy. And everything that we do within the group is circular in that it's a model where all of the different entities, all of the partners are working together collaboratively to add value to all of the stakeholders involved. And what I mean by that is, so we have Terra Group Holdings. When we service nonprofit conservation organizations overseas, we're helping them to raise funds in many cases to pay for sustainable technologies and solutions that they utilize. We started something called Terra Explore Expeditions within our Terra Conservation Initiative. And the expeditions are meant to send volunteers overseas to work with these organizations. But more importantly, they're coming up with funds that ultimately will support those end organizations and pay for sustainable technologies and more. The modular farms that I mentioned, for instance, are being deployed to organizations that feed students in public schools in Florida and elsewhere. And those products and pods, they go in come in pods of 5 to 10 units, again, powered by alternative energy, are staffed by people that need jobs, and they're providing education for the students that are receiving the food as well. So we have Terra Sustainable Technologies. I mentioned Terra Conservation Initiative, Terra Explore Expeditions, again, all working collaboratively. We also have an organization by the name of Terra Organics, which develops organic food and wellness products for institutions. We also help with supply chain and more.
And you use blockchain and AI for that supply chain?
Correct. So almost everything on the technology side that we utilize as it pertains to power, we have light electric vehicles, the modular farms. 90+% of all of the solutions that we deploy utilize some form of AI and blockchain. So, for example, the modular farms utilize blockchain to record everything that's being produced, packaging, deployment, logistics of the vegetables, for instance, going to schools and other institutions, and AI and AR, for that matter, is utilized to optimize efficiency, energy efficiency, water usage, and so forth.
It's very impressive, Tony. You started with solar energy, then you expanded it into food, agriculture. You talked about AI, you talked about blockchain, you talked about education as being such a big part of it. It seems like, true to, as you mentioned, it's like a global multi-sector group. Where all are you present outside US?
Well, we work globally. So we have partners, again, commercial partners, government partners, and nonprofit partners really all over the world at this point. So expeditions are going to Papua New Guinea and Kenya and South Africa, Latin America, Caribbean. We obviously are deploying sustainable technologies to those areas. And unfortunately, like the rest of the world, a lot of our efforts have been slowed down considerably because of COVID, but they are thankfully picking up now. So we have all of those partners, very significant partners. Government of Kenya, for instance. We are working with Freeland Foundation, the UNDP's counter-poaching efforts. Domestically, we're working with real estate entities, school campuses. So back to the real estate, our bread and butter is working again with institutions where we can increase efficiencies, reduce costs, and help businesses really across the board. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Super impressive. And then along with that, you have this huge private equity impact fund. So Paul, I would love to bring you in and tell us more about the impact fund.
Sure. This came out of a joint sense from Tony and myself that there was a need for urgency and scale in the to combine the forces of private equity with the ESG world. So the idea is to combine the management and resources and capital of a large fund and then be able to deploy that in a very efficient way. So one of the things that I've been in private equity for about 30 years in the United States and Latin America, and it is the marriage of money and management that creates opportunities. And one of the things that we see lacking in this area is a combination of large capital resources to be able to develop large-scale solutions. Because there are many well-meaning people out there, but they're doing things on a very small and granular scale. And the types of transactions and projects that we would be involved with have large scale and are repeatable across the world. So our fund is seeking to raise between $250 and $500 million. And unlike many groups, we have a large pipeline of projects, and they range from waste to biofuels, ecotourism, electric vehicles, other types of projects. And they combine the certain attributes, including the fact that they are proprietary, so we're not bidding against other people. They're immediate, so when we receive this funding, we could immediately start deploying them, and they're scalable. To give you just one example, one group that we're working with called New Energy Blue, they have a patented 29 global patents, second generation waste to biofuels project, which each one of these projects sequesters more than 500,000 tons of CO2 per year. And it takes agricultural waste, not corn, not wheat, but agricultural waste, and turns it into biofuels, which have a very low carbon credit score, and which can then be repeated all across the United States and Latin America to start with. So again, the idea is to do that on a very large basis, which gives the investors both very good returns on investment and also has substantial positive impact on local communities and the environment.
Wow, very impressive. You guys work across so many sectors within climate energy, climate renewable energy, climate impact. If both of you have to pick one individual sector and say this is the urgent need of the time and billions of dollars needs to move in this particular space like now, what would that be for you?
I will have my answer, and I will try and I'll deflect your question by saying with all systemic problems, you need systemic answers. So any one solution doesn't solve all these problems. There is a need for sustainable agriculture. There's need for water conservation. There's need of waste to biofuels projects. There's need for ecotourism projects that conserve millions of acres of land and create local businesses and local jobs in rural areas. And by involving the communities in that particular case, you have real conservation, because if in places like Latin America and Africa, if the local community doesn't want to conserve because it's not in their self-interest to conserve, there won't be any conservation. So any systemic problem requires systemic answers, and those answers have to be large and they have to be quick, because this problem is an urgent problem. So it's not something that we can wait 10 years and start deploying capital. If we had capital resources now, and Tony and I are starting to raise this fund as we speak, we would deploy those funds tomorrow. So we would be able to execute on a large scale with tremendous impact. So that you asked for a one section answer, but really it's a multi-factor and multi-sector answer.
No, but very thoughtful, and I completely agree with this. Like, it's such an urgent problem. We have to get our forces together from every side. Last question before I let you guys go. Tell me, assume you have $1 billion in your fund tomorrow. Are there one or two projects which you have already looked at, which you think needs to be deployed or start working now? What would that be? And something which is hugely impactful in your eyes, at least to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul mentioned we have organizations that frankly we know very well, that we know the management teams very well. We've been working with for really quite some time. Those organizations are cash flow positive. They need capital to expand their businesses, to take them to the next level. So we have a handful or so of organizations that we're, again, very excited about. Light electric vehicles, there's one in particular, all American made units that we're now deploying, again, in partnership with this organization. And back to Paul's point on the circular economic model that we're looking at to really scale. I mean, we have eco lodges. If we take high-end eco lodges in Africa or Latin America, and we invest in those organizations, not only to help them become more self-sustaining and renewable and clean water and all that stuff, but they really will be able to expand and conserve thousands and thousands more acres much more frankly than a nonprofit organization would be able to do. And they'll also be providing jobs to people that normally wouldn't have the opportunity to work and support themselves. And a lot of those people, when they're not working, they're out poaching animals, and conservation is challenged. So we have organizations in Latin America ready to go along those lines. And I think Paul mentioned a couple of other very interesting organizations. So as capital comes in, it's going right out the door into these organizations. So.
Tony, I really like that. I think you touched upon circular economy, right? And I think that is absolutely the need, where you start with renewable energy or microfinance and then create this amazing circular economy in the region, make it self-sustainable. Between all the travels you must have done in your life with all these projects, is there any call for action with respect to, it's a climate week, millions of people are watching you. Is there one organization or one project you really think everybody should contribute in whatever capacity in different ways, but that is something they should know and really champion?
Well, that's certainly a big question, and selfishly, I'd like to point people to our Terra Conservation Initiative, which is terraconservation.org, where we are working with a number of governmental and non-governmental nonprofit organizations that are doing phenomenal work out in the field in a number of capacities, ranging from counter-poaching to humanitarian. And again, we're seeking funds to enable these organizations to utilize sustainable technologies in the field and further their efforts. So again, that's terraconservation.org. And from that website, people will be able to see the different organizations that we're working with, ranging from UNDP to Richard Leakey's various entities, Freeland Foundation and Born Free, Born Free USA, Born Free Foundation out of the UK, with really tremendous operations globally. So.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. It is really a big umbrella and such an impressive work. Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you so much, Paul, for taking time out.
Thank you. We appreciate it.